Good morning, folks, and welcome to the Rahim Show. Interestingly, I decided to introduce another uh, discussion on the platform today because yesterday I had a very, interesting conversation with a friend of mine at work, and it was so interesting that the person, mentioned about most Africans do love their country. So we're going to share the number momentarily. I wanted, this particular show this morning on the Sunday morning, and I encourage you to watch the Sunday morning motivation that I just completed on the Rahim show, which inspire you about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But I just wanted to introduce this new topic that we're going to be, talking about on our platform called "Do You Love Your Country?" When we talk about love, a lot of people think that it is not intentional. Love is very intentional. If you say you love something, right, you will be very intentional about it. That's what we're going to talk about. A lot of time, being a Liberian who live in Liberia for almost the year, about 30 to 35 years before moving to the U.S., I saw a lot of things. I never had a chance during the course of the 14-year war to even, leave Liberia to go out of the country. I was there, when all the things took, place or so. And I saw that leaders after leaders, we don't see the sense of national, identity, for our country. Over the year, what we have realized in Liberia, leaders after leaders, you see, the systemic, corruption issues is eating our country. We see lack of accountability, and also, poor economic management that lead, to a lot of things that affect even the creation of these people we call Zogo today in our country is because of some of these poor economic management. So I'm going to share the number this morning, and I want you to be part of it. This is a new topic that I'm going to introduce, and I just thought to, start, this topic after I did the Sunday morning motivation. Do you love your country? When we talk about love for a country, what comes to your mind? Is it, a love out of, just a mere reaction, or is it love that is intentional? That's what we're going to talk about because what we are seeing, a lot of folks who are into government or even in the Capitol building, most of them don't really love their country. And I will give you history and I will give you a lot of information. So I'm going to share the number momentarily for you to call and be a part. I just wanted to be an interactive conversation because it is a new topic being introduced on the Rahim show that we're going to be talking about how can we love our country as a Liberian? Because if we come to the U.S. and we see a lot of great things and we admire these great things, but do we emulate these things and want to see it happen in our country? That's what we call love. Love should be intentional. It shouldn't just be something you say by word or mouth, but it should be something you practice and you be able to implement. I have had a lot of friends who work in project management, and some of the reason why they say some of these things that I really admire is because they say most African nations don't fulfill its obligation because of lack of what we call implementation visibility, and that's true. Imagine somebody giving you a 150 million to be utilized for certain things in Liberia. For example, if we're using Liberia as a case study, and these money are now fully utilized for its benefit or so to help satisfy some of these things that money were intended for. At the end of the day, what happened? It's a lack of project implementation visibility. Yeah, because you don't imagine somebody's going to build a building, and that building was was initiated to be built for maybe $2 million, and you go see that the person actually built a building, but the building is not very guaranteed or so to last for that length of time that the person actually provided that money for. So they become a what? Lack of implementation visibility. Even though the project could be implemented, but you could see vividly that the pace of the project, and even the quality of the project is not as satisfactory to the needs of the internal purpose or so. So when we talk about love your country, and for our viewer out there, if you're watching the show, please share the podcast, make some comment. We highly appreciate you for that. Today is Sunday. I know a lot of folks are preparing to go to church. Myself, I'm doing the same, and I just had a Sunday morning motivation. But that, interestingly, that I wanted us to talk about this new topic on this Sunday morning, and I want you to, be a part of the conversation. And the number is 443-538-7620. Call that number and we can have a very interactive discussion about whether we love our country. As Liberian, we have to love our country. We have to, be intentional about doing things for our country. We cannot, learn all the education. There's something in education called functional illiterate. There are times people are very educated, but they behave like they are illiterate. It happens. Like for instance, if you saw the sign somewhere where they say do not, urinate yet, but you see people will read those signs and also go and urinate there. That's being functionally illiterate, because while you've seen the sign that say do not do this, but you still go and do it. So that's what we are saying in, literary reform, that people go to school, but then they learn all the education and they can apply these things to civil society, to a civilized world. So that's one of the things we are thinking. If you love your country, you'll be very intentional. And that's what we are talking about this morning. So join the conversation this morning on the Rahim Show, so we can see how we can improve our country. The whole goal about, this topic is to see whether we are very intentional about doing the, good for our land and making Liberia a better place. So I'm just going to talk about a lot of things here, core, elements of loving your country. What are some of the core elements when you say you love your country? What are some of the core elements, when you say you love your country? What are some of these core elements that I, link to you, being intentional about loving your country? We have to be intentional. One is loyalty and pride. Just as if you're married, right, and you have a covenant to your wife or to your husband, right, or to your spouse, you are binding to that covenant to not go astray or to not do anything. It's the same things we have to develop for our country. That sense of, that sense of loyalty for our country, that sense of, national identity. You say this is your country, you identify with that country, you should prove that sense of national identity by defending, by being pride and being loyal to that country. That's what, the core elements of loving your country is about. So folks, please join the conversation this morning. The number to call is 443-538-7620. And let's have a conversation about what Liberian or any African for that matter, if you're following the show via Facebook and YouTube, whether we do love our country. Because loving has to be intentional. It don't have to be word from word of mouth. It has to be something that we practice. You have to, if you love your country, you will also love your brother. The Bible says you should love your neighbor as yourself. So you will love your brother. So that's what we're discussing. Most African today, we got a lot of smart African in the diaspora, and that go to school, they are very educated, and they want to, do a lot of things back home. But again, whether we have that intentionality to really go back home and do the work. I know there are a lot of caveat about somebody, who is making something good here and say that, okay, I don't want to go back home and make that sacrifice and my life become haunted, or there is no security, there is no this, a lot of things that people say, I tend to reason with people because I don't know everything, So, but what we are saying is, as Liberian, if you say you are Liberian, do you love your country? Do you do it with intentionality, or you just say it from word or mouth? So we are discussing, we are talking about core elements, of loving one country. We say loyalty and pride. If you love something, you'll be loyal to that thing. You'll be proud that you are a Liberian, So feeding a sense of attachment to your nation, to its people, to its history, and to its value. That's what we are saying, loyalty. If you are loyal to a nation, if you're very intentional about loving your country, you see that you have the sense of what attachment to that country, to the history, to these people, and to the value. So you tend to respect your nation. You have that sense of national identity for your country. If you say you love Liberia, you have to be intentional about it. Not just from word or mouth. You say, oh yeah, I'm a Liberian, I love Liberian, but you don't do the thing intentionally to prove that you love Liberian. And let's go to our leaders out there. Most of them claim that, oh yeah, I love Liberia, I want a position, I want to get a position. They tend to go contrary to some of these things that they say. How can you say that people voted for you or put you into a place, but yet you don't implement what you've been all talking about? Oh yeah, I will do this, I will do that. You don't implement them. It's almost like you're not fulfilling your national sense of national identity to your country. So that's what we are saying. So folks, if you're watching the show, please share the podcast, make a comment, and we highly appreciate you for that. We are discussing do you love your country? Most of the time, I had this conversation with one of my colleagues at work, and he mentioned that most Africans, we don't love our country. That is why you see most of the time we have systemic, corruption in our country. We have lack of accountability. We have, poor economic management that lead to a lot of suffering, and it's true. And I could not argue more, to that brother because he was making a lot of sense. Because I've been Liberian, I've seen this vividly in our country that more people don't take, they don't do things with intention to love their country. So we are discussing that. The number to call is 443-538-7620. Call that number. Let's share some idea and see how we can improve and better our country. Because that's the reason why I'm just, introducing this new conversation on the Rahim show. Do you love your country? So we are saying there are core elements, of loving one country. And one start with loyalty and pride. What about saying loyalty and pride? Feeling the sense of attachment to your nation, its people, and its history, and its value. It tells you that you are very loyal to your country, that you're not willing to sell your country because of dime or nickel. You're not willing to sell your country. Anytime you are loyal to a thing, right, nothing by any means can infuse your mind to be able to sell that thing or to be able to corrupt that thing or to be able to betray that thing. If you're loyal to a country, you will not betray your country. I see a lot of people who are political amphibians. They jump from one tree to another tree because of money, because of this. You're not being loyal. You're not being loyal. You have to be consistent if you want to be a loyal person to your country. I don't care how somebody can come up with a lot of money to take you from one political party to another political party. You have to be consistent. And this is affecting our society today and affecting our country. So we are saying if you love your country, you will be very intentional about it. And nothing will persuade you from being, for exercising your sense of national identity for that country. So the number to call this morning is 443-538-7620. Call that number, let's, have a conversation about what do we do love our country as an African, so we can discuss. The first core elements of loving one country, pride and what? And loyalty. It said the feeling the sense of attachment to your nation, its people, its history, and its value. It tells you that you are very loyal to your country. The next one is critical engagement. Critical engagement. You say acknowledging both the good and the bad aspects of your country history and working to fix flaws. See, if you say you love your country, you see, you have to exercise what we call a critical. You have to put yourself into the place where there is a critical attachment. Where you see yourself attached to a nation, meaning that while it is true there is bad and good about your country, but you are waiting to fix that flaw. You're not willing to be, like a political amphibian moving from one tree to another. No, you are willing to stick, because you have that sense of national identity for your country. You love your country. You are intentional about things, so you're willing to fix the problem. That's why, we say, whether you love your country. If you truly love your country, I'll tell you, you will do a lot of things. There are a lot of Liberians who are very equipped, very good here. I went to a Nima County, program where they were doing an induction ceremony, let's say, induction ceremony about even. And I tell you, there were a conversation that I had with somebody, a guy who is planning, he created an IT platform for the whole country, and you're willing to do that trial for that platform. And I was like, wow, there are a lot of folks here who are even also planning to improve the postal system. They come up with zip code and other things, and we have conversation about these things. And these are all great things to help, being intentional about. But again, the caveat is saying some people are saying that, they don't have that sense of protection when they want to do all of these things. And then because they don't have, they have, there are a lot of people who have ornament spirit, to honor some of these process because of one money. People are not ready, having that sense of national identity to love their country to the fullest to build Liberia to see Liberia a better country. So all of those things are all caveat that help, that prevent, better things from happening in our country. What we are saying, we want to erase those things because what? The core elements of loving your own country, like I said, the first one was loyalty and pride, and the next one is critical attachment, acknowledging both good and bad of your country, but at the same time, working to fix some of the flaws, some of the bad things that happen. How do you work to fix some of these flaws? You have to work tirelessly to make Liberia. We're all helping to make Liberia great by using our voice and our platform and talk about some of these skills and fix some of these problems. It's very good. And the next thing is support for its people. And this is where a lot of people fail. When they want to become leaders in certain position, they will come up with a lot of sweet words and ways to just mesmerize people, and think that they would do this, they would do that, they do that. But in reality, when they get there, we see the opposite. And what we are saying, you have to be consistent because of your sense of national identity for your country, and you are intentional about what you say. You have to support for your people. Support for its people, showing solidarity and believing that everyone should have the opportunity to succeed. Yeah. Don't think that when you are in that position, you are better than the other person. Once upon a time, you started from nowhere. So always create an avenue where you are able to, make other people succeed. And that's why I always talk about creating a career, avenue for a lot of young people in Liberia, because a lot of young people, I believe, they have so many potential, but the reason why some of these potential are not being seen is because there is no avenue created so that these guys can fulfill their full potential. So create that, believe that Liberia have a lot of, technological, advancement, in these kind of people who, when you create an avenue for people to learn something and outshow that talents and skill. We have all the opportunity that we can create, for our young people in Liberia. So another thing is civil duty. The core element about you saying you love your country. If you claim you love your country, civil duty. What is your civil duty? What is your sense of national identity? What is your civil duty to your nation? Is it about just eating money and making Liberia go down the drain? No. It's about what? Doing the right things, to create the right change in Liberia. Because if you don't do the right thing to create the right change, we'll still have Liberia revolving into a cycle. Year after year, we have the same thing happen. No old thing, no new thing. Everything is just the same thing keep happening. It become a repetitive, environment. And you want to see the trajectory of our nation advance and change. We want to see a lot of things happen. We're not saying good things not happening in Liberia. Please do not misconstrue me on this platform. I'm not saying good things not happening in Liberia. I'm just saying, if all of us love our country with the intentionality to do the best thing we expect to see our country, I know that Liberia will be by far better than the way it is. I'm not saying we don't do anything good. We are not doing. Please, I don't want people to use the podcast to misconstrue that. Oh, this guy was saying something on the podcast, and also no. Another thing is civil duty. Participating in your community, voting and respecting the law and regulation of your country. Yeah, your civil duty is to respect the law. A lot of time we see, a lack of accountability, that people do things and they go with impunity in our country. And we don't want to see this thing happen. So that's what we are saying. Do you love your country? And we're going to be talking about that topic a lot because we want people to be a part of the conversation, to know what a Liberian, as a Liberian, do you really love your country? Do you have that sense of national identity? Do you see it as a civil duty to your country to respect law and order? You don't want to contravene the law and order of your nation. You want to respect law and order because a country is governed by rules and regulation, and you have to be somebody who adhered to that rules and regulation. So that's what we are saying. Number to call is 443-538-7620. Call that number this morning. Let's have a fruitful conversation on the Rahim Show about this topic, whether or not we African or we Liberian in particular do love our country with intentionality. So the next thing here is working for improvement. Why do you think working for improvement is very necessary for somebody who has a sense of national, identity? Because no nation is perfect. No nation is perfect. We are all working, to make Liberia a better country. So every time we have this conversation is to find a way to see where we are falling and where we can improve, where we can fix. So we know that a lot of things are falling apart in our country. And how do we fix it? It's when we develop love over, self-interest. When we develop love with intentional over self-interest. Love with intention over self-interest will help make our country a better place. So working for improvement, devotion to the country that involve working to make it better. Even during difficult times, even during challenging times, you're working to make Liberia a better country. And that will help change the trajectory of our country. Folks, I never had anybody to make a call, but this is just a new, thing that we're going to be talking about for our country, because the main reason for this particular topic is just the conversation that I had with someone, and I found it interesting, that we can, use this conversation topic to be able to, make Liberia a better place. So, folks, thank you for following. It was just a short conversation, and I needed somebody to join me. But hopefully, in the near future, when we discuss this, we'll have somebody to join. Well, happy Sunday to everybody. And once again, I tell you, as a Liberian, be the change you want to see. Let your life, be a reflection to impact the lives of other people. God bless you, and have a wonderful day. Bye for now.